Just want to introduce myself if you don't know me already. I'm Kat from the Wild Alaskan Company recipe team. I'm going to introduce you to what I think is an absolutely essential seafood recipe for home cooks, fish piccata. It's a meal that requires very few ingredients, almost no chopping, and it's done in under 20 minutes. All that being said, it feels kind of fancy, and you'll want to have this in your repertoire for all of those reasons and more. Any sort of piccata dish is a cut of protein that's paired with a lemony, buttery sauce. There's usually a splash of something like broth or wine as well to make the sauce extra saucy. And then you'll have lots of juices to spoon over the fish as you're eating it. I encourage you to try making this recipe with any species. It's great with sockeye, coho, any whitefish. But I'm going to be making this with Pacific halibut. Just going to do a single fillet. Let's get started. So just to introduce some of the ingredients, you've already seen Pacific halibut, just a single fillet. I have a few slices of lemon and some herbs. Beyond that, no chopping or knife skills required. Got a little pat of butter, some fresh squeezed lemon juice from the other quarter of this, capers, of course, olive oil. I usually use a high heat cooking oil when I'm searing, but olive oil is what I had, so we should be fine with that. The additional liquid that I'm going to be adding to this is just a little bit of this wine that was left over from a previous meal of mine. Not necessarily a magical ingredient, but we also have just a little bit of flour here that we're going to dredge the fish with. Let me go ahead and preheat this to medium high. In the meantime, I have already patted the Pacific halibut dry with a couple of paper towels just to get some of the excess moisture off the surface of the fillet. That way, when we put this into the pan, it'll get a really nice sear. But before we actually put it into the pan, I'm going to dust this halibut fillet with some flour. So we don't need a lot here. We're not creating a breading. We're just lightly dusting the surface of the fish. So, you can give that a little rub. Probably maybe a tablespoon or two is sufficient for a single fillet of fish. And what this is going to do is give us a little bit more body in the sauce that we end up creating, and also give this a nice, easy golden sheen. I put some salt and pepper in the flour itself just to pre-season it, but you can go ahead and season the fillet with salt and pepper, then dredge it in flour. So this is feeling hot. Let me add in just enough oil to cover the bottom of the pan and let this get shimmering hot so that we get a nice sizzle once we put the fish in here. Also, in the meantime, what I'm going to do is to the lemon juice, maybe I'll add a tablespoon or two of white wine or broth. That looks like it'll be enough to form a sauce once this fish gets going in here. So let's go ahead and put the halibut into the pan. All right, so you see, got some bubbles around the edges there, so getting a nice sizzle going. Let this cook for just a few minutes or so. Let me just take this halibut out of the pan. It looks about done. For the next step, I'm going to drain off some of this oil that's in the pan. Just going to drain a little bit of this into the container here in the sink, and then pour in the lemon juice and wine. And you'll see these really nice big bubbles forming. This is going to help reduce what we have in the pan when you get this nice simmer, adding enough of that liquid in there so that it doesn't sputter everywhere. We're going to let this reduce by about half. There is some residual flour in the pan itself, and this is going to create a really nice spoonable consistency to the finished sauce. Usually boiling this down will maybe take a couple minutes. The next thing I'm going to add to this is the capers. I have a little bit of parsley here. It's not in the recipe, but sometimes I like adding a couple of thin slices of lemon to a piccata recipe because they end up looking really pretty once everything's plated. What I would like to do though is give this a little bit of a taste to see if I have a good balance of lemon to wine. Oh yeah, that is zippy. That's what I'm looking for. It should taste pretty acidic from the lemon. We're looking for a lemony sauce. You do have butter that you're going to add to the pan momentarily, and that'll help take some of that edge off and balance out the flavors in here. Okay, this is looking great. You can kind of see here, it's getting a little bit more viscous, I would say, and not quite the point where it'll stick to the back of the spoon. We're not looking for a thick, creamy sauce like that. That's never going to happen with the ingredients that we're using. It is thickening and getting a little more saucy. So in that case, what I'm going to do is add in the capers, as many as you like, herbs, and then to this, we're going to add a lot of butter. I would say aim for about a tablespoon. We're basically using the butter to create a really velvety, rich sauce. And we're doing this off the heat so that the butter doesn't start separating. The flour in the dish itself is going to help prevent some of that sauce from breaking, but doing this over no heat ensures this really nice texture that we're seeing here, where we're getting almost a creamy sauce. So once that's all dissolved, you can give that a little taste, add a little more salt or pepper as you like. Really delicious. So now that we have this amazing sauce and this perfectly seared, lightly floured filet, what we can do is spoon this over the fish. You probably put that on here. And there's going to be a lot of sauce left in the pan, so you can always make sure to have a side of bread or something nearby. This is the finished halibut piccata, single serving, little saucy, got some lemons on there for some flair, and just an overall very easy meal to make. I'm gonna take a bite of it now. This should be really flaky here on the side. So when halibut is cooked perfectly, it should flake that easily just with a touch of a fork. Absolutely perfect. The mildness of the halibut, I think, works really well. The sauce is already balanced. It's bright, puckery, but has that richness from the butter, but it perfectly complements a really mild, hearty fish like halibut. Yum. Really, really delicious. Next week, we're going to be doing easy ways to eat more seafood. We'll cover things like how to defrost fish, some of my favorite pantry staples, and even a searing demo. So we're going to sear Pacific salmon sockeye probably next week. So I'll show you exactly how easy it is to do that in any pan that you own. So yeah, thanks for joining me today, and I hope you get to try this recipe out. It's one of my favorites, and live wild, everyone.